What a fool Big Brother is.
He whispered before rain came down from the sky. Well, shit.
Why can't you just understand there are some people who will never love you back?
I called out before he glanced over at me, before he picked me up in his watery hand. I felt my whole body flinch as Shuichi cried out.
Kokichi!
He yelled and gasped with tears in his eyes. I hated seeing these kinds of things happen because they make Shuichi cry. Sure, his tears can be beautiful when I'm here to help him, but in these cases, all I can do is feel a painful sadness in my heart as I hear his cries while he's absent from my arms.
Shuichi, it's going to be okay.
I called out, trying to help him calm down as well. I looked over at Nome and then back at Shuichi before I put something together in my head. If Nome is the earth elemental, couldn't Hess help him melt some of his rock so we could pour it on Yundi? Just as people put out molten lava with water, and even just the lack of air. But in this case, we were putting water out with hot rock.
Nome!
I called out before Nome looked over at me after trying a couple of times to get the arm out of his way so he could look over me.
Sin?
He looked over at me before I sighed.
It's Kokichi, but I'm possessed by sin, so I need your help.
I said, looking down at my hands, gesturing that I was going to rip the watery arm apart with help from Sin's air. Just as a tornado rips apart a building with only the power of wind and air.
Help?
Yundi laughed when I called out to his brother.
You are asking this asshole for help?
He laughed as his eyes went wide.
He couldn't help you with anything, even if it's a simple task as helping you get away from bullies.
He yelled, making Nome flinch a bit. I'm assuming there must be contention between these siblings, which makes all of this more painful for both sides.
Well, that's why you have to be able to help yourself first.
I called out to him before I clenched my hands, pressing them against the watery arm holding me up around my waist and torso.
So, now!
I called out before there was a large pulse of wind through my hands before it burst, making the watery hand that once held me break apart. Water fell to the ground as I was able to catch myself with the wind before I hit the ground. I looked over to where Kurai and Cathy were. I hate to have to ask Kurai to help again, especially since Cathy is still out. He met my gaze and gave me a small nod. He moved Cathy to stand up while leaning against him, so he would be able to use his powers. He raised his hand while one rested on Cathy's back to hold her up. Soon after this, the rain started slowing as the sun came out again.
No!
He screamed, falling back a bit. I smirked as I moved back and told Nome about my plan as the sun grew hotter and hotter.
We need to make a cage for him,
I stated, making him look at me confused.
A cage? How could we go about that?
He said before adding.
He has already shown he can break through my stone.
He sighed. I put my hand to my chin before looking over at Shuichi. Shuichi met my gaze before he rushed over to me. He embraced me in an instant. I decided to give him this because of the way I made him afraid for me and how I made him cry.
Shu, it's okay. I'm okay.
I whispered, rubbing his back as he cried onto my shoulder. I could see the monster that is now Yundi kept shrinking a lot because of the way the sun was evaporating the water.
But I need your help.
I pulled away from the embrace and cupped his cheeks so he would look into my eyes.
Anything for you.
He said, making me laugh a bit.
Thank you, Shuichi.
I whispered before gently kissing his cheek before I pulled away. I moved my hand into his own so we could go back over to Nome.
This is Shuichi, the one who's possessed by...
I started before Nome held up his hand.
I know Hess, the fire elemental. What is your plan?
He asked, getting straight to the point. I moved back before rubbing the back of Shuichi's hand.
I need you both to work together to melt some rock. Then we can move that over to him and encase him in it.
I saw their eyes widen a bit before Nome spoke.
That's a good plan, Kokichi.
He said, making me smile a bit because he called me by my actual name. I smiled at the both of them as they started to work together. I looked back over at Cathy and Kurai. Except Anaki was now holding Cathy, while Kurai used all his strength to make the sun shine over the 6 of us. Not including Yundi. She was also using her power on Cathy, which I'm assuming is to restore her to a time she wasn't being used and drained by Yundi. I looked back at the scene in front of me. Shuichi and Nome have gotten some melted rock, and they were moving towards the normal-sized Yundi, who was covering his face as he melted.
No! It hurts, big brother!
He screamed as they moved over to him to make his own molten rock cage. He screamed and yelped as it surrounded him. The rock slowly formed a cage of thick rock that was drying quickly with the help of me. I moved over and surrounded the cage with wind and air to make it dry faster.
How could you?
Yundi said, moving back into the corner of the cage.
You are just like them,
he whispered, making Nome sigh a bit.
Yundi, you have been being a bully by harassing Sin and Hess when you and I both know they love each other, and she would never love you under any conditions.
Nome said, placing his hand on the cage bars on the small window they made.
But you hurt me, just like they did!
He screamed, holding his hands over his ears. Nome sighed again and moved his arm through the bars.
And who was there for you every day when you came home crying?
He asked, holding his arm to him.
You were,
he whispered from inside the cage.
I can handle this,
he whispered to me and Shuichi before he moved his other arm into the cage. Shuichi and I looked to one another before we both moved over to where Cathy was.
How is she doing?
Kurai asked as he let his hands fall. His face was red and there was sweat dripping from his forehead. He looked exhausted as Anaki looked up at him.
She is going to be all right. She just needs some rest,
she said before Cathy panicked. Her eyes shot open and she pushed Anaki out of the way, making herself fall to the ground. I used my wind to hold up her body so she wouldn't get another concussion or something.
Who are you?
She yelled, looking over at me and Shuichi. I was about to open my mouth before Anaki held her hand up.
When I use Relive on people, their memory gets reset for a small time as well,
she said, making me nod my hand in understanding.
Kurai? Where have you been?
She gasped, rushing over to him after she got up off the ground.
Cathy?
He whispered, not wanting to harm her in any way. He assumed she would be mad at him because of all the things that had happened. But she held him, like I would hold Shuichi after not seeing him for a time.